Right now, somewhere on this planet, a grown adult is crying over an animated fish. Not because someone died, not because they're in physical pain, because a pixelated whale sang a sad song in a children's movie, and something inside them just broke open. And here's the strange part. You completely understand why. Take a second and think about what crying actually is, stripped down to pure biology. You are leaking fluid from your face, in public, uncontrollably. While your eyes go red, your nose runs, and your voice cracks in ways you absolutely did not authorize. If you pitched this design to an evolutionary engineer, you'd get laughed out of the room. Because on the African savanna 200,000 years ago, crying basically meant posting a flyer that said, "I'm right here. I can't see straight. I'm making noise. Come get me." That's not a survival strategy. That's a suicide note. And yet here we are, still crying, still surviving. That's not a design flaw. That might be one of the most sophisticated tools evolution ever quietly slipped into the human body. Part 1, the only animal that cries for no physical reason. Let's clear something up that most people get wrong. Almost every animal produces tears. Your dog's eyes water. Crocodiles cry while they eat, which is where the phrase crocodile tears comes from, because they're not sad, their tear ducts just fire while they're chewing. Basic plumbing: keep the eyes moist, flush out debris, move on. But crying because your heart hurts, crying because you're overwhelmed with joy, crying because a song found the exact memory you buried 3 years ago and dragged it back into the light. As far as researchers can tell, in the entire animal kingdom, exactly one species does that: us. Charles Darwin actually thought emotional crying was meaningless, a useless byproduct of the nervous system, like a hiccup with nowhere to go. He was right about a lot of things. On this one, he whiffed. Because if crying were truly useless, evolution would have deleted it thousands of generations ago. That's how this works. Things without function disappear. We lost our tails. We lost most of our body hair. The muscles that let our ancestors rotate through years, slowly vanishing, generation by generation. But emotional tears, still here, still running. Which means they're doing something. Part 2, 3 types of tears, and the word one. Scientists actually split tears into 3 categories. And once you hear this, you'll never use the word crying the same way again. Basal tears, the ones coating your eyes right now, this second. You don't feel them. They're always there. Oil, water, mucus. Keeping the surface of your eye from drying out like a forgotten piece of bread. Completely automatic. Nothing interesting here. Reflex tears, when you chop an onion, when wind hits your eye, when someone accidentally elbows you in the nose at a concert. Your body responds to physical irritation by flooding your eyes to wash it out. Still not interesting. Then there's the third type, emotional tears. And here's where it gets genuinely weird. Emotional tears have a different chemical composition than the other two. Not slightly different, meaningfully different. Emotional tears contain higher concentrations of prolactin, a hormone tied to bonding and caregiving. They contain leucine enkephalin, which is a natural painkiller your body produces. And they carry elevated levels of ACTH, a hormone your body releases under stress. So when you cry because you're heartbroken, you're not just leaking water. You're secreting, through your face, a cocktail of stress markers, bonding signals, and built-in pain relief. You are literally sending a chemical message. The question is, to whom? Part 3, the social weapon. Here's where things get interesting. Psychologist Oren Hassan at Tel Aviv University made an argument worth sitting with. Tears evolved as a social signal, not primarily to release emotion, but to communicate information to other people in a way that language simply cannot fake. Think about that for a second. You can fake a smile. You can fake calm. You can say, "I'm fine," while absolutely not being fine. And sometimes people will believe you. But genuinely crying, that's hard to manufacture. Real tears come with red eyes, a-cracking voice, and facial muscles doing things you cannot fully control. In the language of evolutionary biology, that makes it what's called a reliable signal. And reliable signals are extraordinarily valuable. So what does this reliable signal communicate? I am hurt. I am not a threat to you. I need help. In a small group of hominids whose survival depended entirely on cooperation, that message was worth everything. It immediately drops the defenses of anyone watching. It activates empathy. And according to research, it dramatically lowers the likelihood that the person watching you will act aggressively toward you. You're crying? You're probably not about to attack anyone. And in a world of small, tense human groups where a misunderstanding could turn fatal in seconds, the ability to instantly broadcast, "I'm wounded, not dangerous," may have had genuine survival value. Tears weren't weakness, they were diplomacy. Part 4. Why women cry more and why men aren't supposed to. Here's a number most people know instinctively, but have never heard out loud. Studies across multiple decades consistently show that women cry somewhere between 3 and 5 times per month on average. Men cry roughly 1 to 2 times per month. Why? Part of it is biology. Prolactin, the hormone linked to emotional tears, runs significantly higher in women, especially after puberty. Testosterone, which runs higher in men, actually suppresses part of the crying response. But here's the part that should make you think. Before puberty, boys and girls cry at almost exactly the same rate. So the gap isn't purely hardwired. A significant chunk of it is built by culture. And what does that culture tell boys? Don't cry, toughen up, men don't do that. Which raises an obvious question. Why would a society actively suppress a social signal that evolution spent millions of years developing? One theory: in rigidly hierarchical societies, warrior cultures, military structures, systems built on dominance, a leader cannot show vulnerability. Because the signal that says, "I am hurting," is also the signal that says, "I can be taken." So a social rule emerged. Men, especially high-status men, don't cry. Not because crying is weak, but because in certain specific contexts, displaying vulnerability is genuinely dangerous. The side effect of that rule? Millions of people suppressing a mechanism that was specifically designed to reduce stress, build connection, and help the nervous system recover. That's a steep price for a cultural norm. Part 5. What it actually does to your brain. Okay, but why does crying sometimes feel good? You know this feeling. You cry, really cry, the kind you can't pull back, and afterwards something shifts. The problem isn't solved, nothing changed, but you feel lighter. Quitter. Like a pressure valve got released somewhere inside you. That's not in your head. When you cry, your parasympathetic nervous system kicks in, the rest and digest side of your body's operating system. Heart rate drops, breathing deepens. The body starts pulling itself back from the edge of stress activation. At the same time, crying releases oxytocin and endorphins, chemicals wired to feeling soft connection and pain relief. Your body is medicating itself. And here's the kicker. Research by psychologist Asmir Grakanin and colleagues found that this recovery effect basically only happens when you cry in a safe context, ideally in the presence of another person. Crying alone while feeling ashamed or isolated, the benefit nearly disappears. Sometimes it reverses. Crying was not designed to be done in the dark by yourself. It was designed to have an audience. Part 6, the baby and the most elegant paradox in human evolution. Think about a newborn. Can't talk, can't walk, can't point at what it needs. Can't do almost anything except exist and slowly get heavier. But it can do one thing, it can cry. And that specific sound, that particular cry, has been precision-tuned by millions of years of evolution to trigger an almost irresistible response in nearby adults. Not just parents, any adult. The frequency of a newborn's cry falls exactly in the range where human hearing is most sensitive. The brain processes it as a high-priority signal, meaning you hear a baby crying through noise that masks everything else. Neuroscience research shows that just hearing a baby cry is enough to activate the amygdala, the brain's emotional alarm system, in adults who have never had children, in men who have never held an infant, across cultures, languages, and life experiences. It overrides everything. A baby's cry is one of the most powerful communication signals evolution ever engineered. It kept our species alive on cold nights in dark caves, when a completely helpless creature with zero survival skills needed someone to come. And it still works, every day, everywhere. Part 7. Why you cry at movies and why that's actually profound. Alright, back to the animated fish. Why does a human brain, wired to handle real threats, real pain, real loss, cry over fiction? Here's the answer. Your brain genuinely cannot fully tell the difference. Not because it's dumb, because it's efficient. It doesn't wait to verify whether something is real before responding. It responds immediately to emotional patterns: loss, separation, sacrifice, a character you care about suffering. The brain processes those patterns, real or fictional, through the same systems. And those systems trigger crying. Neuroscientist Antonio Damasio called this the body as theater, the idea that our bodies respond to imagined scenarios almost identically to real ones. That's why you flinch when a character gets hit on screen. Why your muscles tense when someone's being chased. Why you cry when a character you've spent 90 minutes caring about disappears. And this capacity, this ability to feel someone else's pain as if it were your own, to grieve for people who don't exist, to cry over a story, may be one of the things that made us Homo sapiens in the first place. The ability to feel for others who aren't present, to care about strangers, to be moved by things that haven't happened to you. That's the foundation of empathy. Empathy is the foundation of cooperation. And cooperation is what allowed a medium-sized primate with no claws, no venom, and no particularly impressive teeth to build every civilization that has ever existed on this planet. The animated fish made you cry. That means it's working. The final paradox, so here's where we land. Crying is a survival liability. It blurs your vision, it broadcasts your location. It advertises your vulnerability to anything within earshot that might want to hurt you. And crying is the most powerful social tool evolution ever quietly installed in the human body. It connects, it releases, it heals. It tells the truth in a way that language can never convincingly fake. Both of those things are completely true. And they're true at the same time because our species made a transition. From an environment where the things in the dark were your greatest threat, to an environment where the people around you became your greatest source of safety. Once that shift happened, once other humans became shelter instead of danger, showing vulnerability in front of them stopped being reckless. It became the smartest move you could make. So the next time you catch yourself crying over a movie, a song, a text from someone you haven't talked to in years, don't apologize for it. Not because crying is brave, in the poster on the wall sense, but because in that moment, the oldest and most sophisticated system in your body is doing exactly what it was built to do. It's connecting you to something that matters. It's telling the rest of your brain, pay attention. This one's real. And for 200,000 years of human history, that has always been the most important message worth hearing.